vacation has come to a close. It's time for the Power Hour to get back on track, and we're going to do it right here on this 17th of July, 2023. Hope you're having a great Monday. Hope you're finishing it strong. I'm trying to help you do that with this 60-second love letter to local loyal sports that we call the Ysn Power Hour, and it's all brought to you thanks to our friends over at Toyota of Warren. Thanks to Tino and all the great people over there for making this possible for all of you. Got a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about today. A couple different topics we're going to chime in on. One of them is it's kind of still a developing story. They tried to sneak it past us a little bit on the 4th of July, and it is this whole story about the OHSAA now having to accept cash at the gate. So if you remember during COVID, everything, if you are allowed to be attend the game, it was all cashless. They went to, I think it's called the hometown ticketing system. And what happened from there essentially was if you did not have a digital ticket, they couldn't sell you one at the gate. And it started in 2020, and then 2021, obviously, it like ramped up. It was really weird. It was really weird. But it made things a lot easier, I think, for athletic directors from that perspective, where they could kind of figure out what their revenue was coming into the game and you know, all that stuff. So they just went to all digital ticketing. So it left people that were the elderly who weren't very savvy with tech, you know, the digital technology, they didn't have, listen, my father-in-law still has a flip phone. He would not be eligible to get up and go to his grandson's game if they adopted this in the OHSAA, which they did. As a tech guy, it bothers me that we can't do that and get it across, but I still understand cash is king here. And I never really understood why you couldn't just buy a ticket. There was no cutting costs. There was no anything like that. The ticket takers were still taking the ticket. They were just checking it on your phone and things of that nature. So I'm going to read you this this briefing, and you probably have heard about it, and if you haven't, it's something you need to start looking into, because now OHSAA schools are required to accept cash for tickets concessions in October. Now that's October. Keep in mind that the season for football and volleyball and soccer starts in August. So you've got about a month and a half before this goes into effect. And the only reason that I can find all over the internet is that it has to go 90 days after Governor DeWine signs it, which would put it in October. So that's the reason. So here's the OHSAA, the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Member schools will be required to accept cash as a form of payment starting in early October for admissions and concession stands for all high school affiliated events as a result of the provision in House Bill 33 in the state of Ohio. OHSAA sent a memo regarding the applicable information in House Bill 33 to member schools on July 6th. It's believed that the law does not apply to the OHSAA tournament contest. They got you again. They got you again. All OHSAA tournament contests use digital ticketing for entry. So let's start there. Let's start to break that down right there. Okay. And then we'll kind of dive into this a little bit further. Again, I am a proponent for whatever is most convenient for you. I feel like, now I went to one Pirate game this far. I feel like if I want to go to a Pittsburgh Pirate game, if I want to go to a Pittsburgh Steeler game, I can still walk up to the ticket counter and purchase a ticket with my credit card. I think that all forms of payment other than like Bitcoin and stuff like that. And if you want to accept Bitcoin, that's fine. That's on you. I have it. But why are we turning people away? Why are we saying, no, Nana and Pop Pop? No, you can't go watch your grandson play because you don't have one of these, right? You don't have a phone, and we can't be ready for that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The concessions are usually run by the band or the boosters or some form of that school. And because your son or daughter doesn't have a digital form of payment, they can't go get nachos. They can't go, go get in, which I'm not going to say it's overpriced or not, because I get it. It's a business and you got to make money. It's not there, to just feed people's bellies. You got to make money on it. It's a business, right? And if you don't make money, you're going to go out of business. But why aren't you taking money at the concession stands? Why aren't you taking cash at the concession stand? That makes no sense to me at all. So basically, what you're doing from that standpoint is like a college meal plan almost. If that's the route you're going to take, why would you turn away cash? I think we all understand why we take cash, right? And if you don't, you shouldn't be running a business. But at the end of the day, like, the OHSAA wants to make sure, and let's make sure this is perfectly clear. The OHSAA wants, and Coach Spate was here again a week or so ago talking about this. The OHSAA, the only reason they want this digital technology is because they want to make sure that they're taking their cut. They want to make sure that the numbers add up, right? Because when there is a digital paper trail, so to speak, from week 10 to week 11, they can look at that and say, well, that's interesting because you had 700 ticket sales week 10 and you only have 200 week 11. That red flag goes straight up in the air. However, if the cash is king, and it is, that means that there's some wiggle room there. Because at the end of the day, it's none of the OHSAA's business how you run your business from weeks 1 to weeks 10 in football season. Zero. They have nothing to do with it other than being the governing body of that school. They just want to be in your business. They're like the mob boss from that perspective, and they want to make sure they know that they're not getting cheated when it's time to start talking about their birthday party, which is the OHSAA tournament. They want to know that if you've got this many people in the stands for week 10, that you also have that many people in the stands for week 11. Because a 16 versus 1 is going to produce all kinds of excitement in that stadium. The same type of excitement that typically in a week 10 in football, it's going to produce rivalry games. That's when a lot of the rivalry games are played. That's when a lot of the gate is made, is during those rivalry games and rivalry weeks. This stinks to me. Like, if you've ever watched the Hunger Games, right? If you've ever seen, and I think it was part 1 of, and listen, don't make fun of me because I watched the Hunger Games. It's a great series of movies. But it's like when the one character explains, they let us out. We got out too easy. Something stinks here. Something stinks here because the OHSAA didn't put up a fight that I could find at all. And I think it's because the negotiations, ipso facto, were, hey, you can do whatever you want during the season, but you're not going to touch our birthday party. You're not going to touch what we do from weeks 10, or I'm sorry, from weeks 11 to week 16. That is still digital. Oh, by the way, as we talk to Coach Spate, that is still a situation where the schools, the member schools that are paying to be part of the OHSAA are doing all the work and getting none of the money, or very little of the money, I should say. So why is it this House Bill 33 is only good from August 18th until week 11? Makes no sense to me. Is it because it's a private tournament? Is that what it is? I think it's crazy. Because guess what? You're going to have the same issue. You're going to have the same problem week 11 that you had for the last 4 years. Only you're going to have a lot more angry people because they're going to get used to paying cash. And then all of a sudden they're going to go, sorry, you have to do it all digital in week 11. From 1 week to the next, from one day to the next, there's going to be a complete transition. And you know, the funny thing about this is the athletic directors are not the ones that are responsible for that decision. And they're the ones that are going to get blamed. And let's take it down the totem pole a little bit further. The ticket takers are the ones that are going to get yelled at. And they're the ones that are going to have to bear the cross for this because the OHSA doesn't want to budge on, hey, we want to make sure that if grandpa and grandma or aunt and uncle want to come to this, they can, or any of the people coming up to the gate because, hey, we thought we were going to make it, or, you know, we had a party or we had plans on a Friday night and all of a sudden they don't. Well, sorry, you didn't buy your ticket digitally, which I'm going to be honest, not that easy. Not that easy to get through from what I've heard. But they want to make sure they're making every dollar and every dollar is accounted for with these schools because they feel like for some reason, this is and again, not their words. This is my anticipation. This is my discovery. They're being cheated. They feel like they're being cheated and they can't trust schools that they're begging to have these games for at their facilities on their dime. They're saying, we can't trust you. That's a shame. To me, that's an absolute travesty. And that's absolute greed. Sorry, you can't get in. Tough luck. It's so frustrating. And it's so incredibly frustrating to me to see the OHSAA get, and the stories everywhere, but the OHSAA gets off on this because this should be across the board. If you want to go watch a football game, if you want to go watch a baseball, softball, whatever game, volleyball, soccer, and you got $10. This is the United States of America, and that has legal tender. But because you don't buy it with your phone, you're not given access. You're not given what you've worked hard for. Makes no sense to me. 0 cents. And it's frustrating because there's no rhyme or reason to it. How much is being paid in fees? Says Ben Rogers. Help me out with what fees you're looking for, Ben. That might help my my search here. We got Derpy Entertainment saying it should be just phone stuff entirely because it's not the 2000s anymore. Even if it's high school, all they need to do is make it easy. I get that. I understand it. But what's the difference, I guess, from my standpoint? I guess I would ask the question and be the devil's advocate and saying, what's the difference between a $10 bill being handed in and a $10 bill going here, and then you've got a $1.25 fee. And maybe that's what Ben's talking about. The $1.25 fee or whatever it is that you do. So now your $10 ticket's now $11.25, let's say. Which is funny because I was in a meeting at one point during COVID, and they told me this group of athletic directors, if I'm advertising $9.99, it better not be $10.65, or else I'm the one that's going to get yelled at. The reality is service fees are service fees. And you know, we're seeing in the industry, we're seeing the airline industry being hit up for all the fees and stuff like that. I'm talking about $1.25, which doesn't feel like a lot, but over the long run, it becomes a lot. If you have 10,000 people that are paying $1.25 service fee, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But even more than that, I'm not going to pay this service fee. If I'm a provider, I'm not going to pay the service fee for you. The smart thing would be included in your price and just make it $12. But it doesn't sound as good if it's a $12 ticket, right? It's $9.99 plus a service fee. We have to do the same thing. I get it. I understand it. It's not optional. They tack it on us. It's tacked on this ticket fee, right? But I'll be honest, if I can go and I've got 3 people with me, and I'm going to a game and it's $10 a person, I would rather give $40 cash than $45 on my phone. Right? Am I wrong? Would you rather pay $40 to go to the game or $45 to go to the game? The service fee isn't the be all and end all to me. And I've got no problem being part of this technology driven society. I love it. I live here, right? Welcome home. However, I don't agree with the way, like if somebody comes up to me and they want to buy some of our merchandise and they give me a $10 bill, they get the $10 shirt. I don't like playing the game. You know what I mean? It's who is your master at that point? You know, and what sucks for these schools and these athletic directors is they are so susceptible to what the OHSAA wants. And now the Ohio government's getting involved, and they can't even do that right. They can't say this is a one-stop shop. You're going to accept money for everything. You're going to accept cash for everything. If I come in with, it's a $5 ticket and I come up with 500 pennies, you have to accept that. It's not even that. It's the schools can do it, and then it's when it's the OHSA's party, when it's tournament time, you got to do what they say. Why? I'll say it again, and I'm not calling for a rebellion. But at some point, these schools have to stand up and go, wait a minute. You are not going to tell us what to do. We are the member schools of this organization, 818 strong. And I would presume that if 818 schools stood up and said, we're done here. You're not going to bully us anymore. What do you think the OHSAA is going to do? They have no choice. They have no option. None. Other than throwing a really nice birthday party for state champions at the end of the season, explain to me what they do other than make money off of these schools. I don't understand it. They don't hand out scholarships as far as I know. They're not aiding Ohio high school athletes in getting to the next level. They're selling chocolate milk. They're telling you where you can and can't watch these state championship games. They're collecting money off of the schools, which I would guess inevitably are collecting money off of the parents and students in some form or fashion, whether it's pay to play or 19 billion fundraisers. At some point, somebody has to stand up and tell the OHSAA, enough is enough. That's it. You're a nonprofit. Why are you profiting off of these schools? And why are you profiting off of my son or daughter? Makes no sense. None at all. And you're not going to tell me that we can't bring in our grandma and grandpa to watch their son or grandson or daughter play. It's just not going to happen. I know what it's going to take. It's going to take a live tour type situation that somebody steps up, gets backed by a lot of cash, and they do it right. And there's two things, and I say this from experience, not because I want it to happen, but because it's inevitable that you're going to push the wrong person down the wrong lane, and they're just going to get fed up and tired of it, and they're going to say, I'm going to stand up and fix this. Look what happened. Look what has happened. We are so far down the wrong path that they're doing whatever they want. They're doing whatever they want. They're charging whatever they want. It's gone too far. It's gone too far, and it's for far too long. It might be the 2000s, but lots of grandparents can't do the digital deal. Sorrel, I agree with you. My parents would have a hard time doing the digital deal. My mom's not even 70 yet. My in-laws would have a very challenging time doing that. Pennsylvania, to my knowledge, doesn't do this. If you walk in with a $10 bill, guess what? Cha-ching. This way, sir. This way, ma'am. But no. And you know what's crazy about this? Speaking from experience, it's only going to take one digital attack on something like this to make everybody's hands go up. Right? Everybody's going to get frustrated. It's cruel and unusual punishment to only accept digital forms of payment in the first place. I never understood it. Doesn't make sense. The only reason it makes sense is if that you can, apples to apples comparison of what's coming in and who's there. And it's just another way to track and be quote unquote on task with things and balance the truth from the sort of truth. Like when it was only cash, yeah, sometimes you got a guy that gets by. Sometimes, but I've been in stadiums that people are lined up around the outside fence watching games because they don't have a digital ticket. And you know what? Truth be told, the athletic directors don't care. Because guess what? They're not going to be penalized. And listen, they've got no incentive to go out and say, hey, you guys need to buy a ticket or you need to get lost. Because what's in it for them? And I feel for them. They're throwing parties. They're doing all this stuff where they're going up and, they got YSN on one TV that on their porch and they're able to absolutely see what's going on down in the field. And what are the athletic directors going to say? There's people that are lined up with their trucks on the outside of the stadiums and they can see right in and they never pay a dime. if the OHSAA or a member of the OHSAA was there, they'd probably say, no, 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 you can't do that. You got to go charge these guys, or they've got to get off your property. This is private property. Da, 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 da. I can tell you athletic directors don't care, because those are probably the same people that have been supporting these programs for the last 30, 40, 50 years. Those are the same people that typically, when you go up to them and you say, we need an ad for our program, or we need a sponsor for pizza for the kids for X, Y, or Z, they're probably the ones handing you cash and saying, go get it. Put it on my tab. But when it comes to coming into the games, it wasn't good enough. You got to download this and import all your information. And quite honestly, the older generation doesn't want to do that because they've earned the right to say they don't have to. They've supported us for long enough, and we can't give them back what they deserve. So guess what? These athletic directors, these people that have influence in the communities, they're not going to push the envelope. They don't care. They don't care. But the OHSAA, even though they lost the battle here with House Bill 33, they're not going to lose the war. Oh, no, no, you're not going to get us because you still have to come to our party, and it's digital tickets only. I just thought it was interesting. I know there's a lot of people out there that are celebrating this like it's a win against the OHSAA, but folks, it's a bad beat. It's a bad beat because the same problems that we faced the last 3 years, we're going to face in week 11. We're going to face them. And you're only going to be angrier. Trust me. Because the $10 that's spent the same in week 10 will not spend the same in week 11 unless it's digital. Unless it's the Jeffrey dollar, right? Let's catch up on some of these before we take a break. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland didn't even accept cash payments for concession. It's wild. And Ty, yeah, they talked about that in the story. That has to happen in concession stands until week 11. And then all bets are off. But I think it'd be, now, granted, you have to have a signal, right, in order to take credit card payments. But to me, why wouldn't you take every form of payment available? I have no problem with digital payments. I don't want people to get it twisted. I have a problem with not taking all forms of payment. I know athletic directors do not care. They don't care. They would actually prefer you to purchase one of the plans that you buy all the home games, or a season pass, or a whatever pass it is that time of year, an all-inclusive ticket. So that way they don't have to worry about it. You show up, you flash your pass, you're in. But now we got to worry about, does your phone work? Do you have a signal? Like, some of the places that we go to broadcast don't have a strong enough signal to stream out video. Think about that. Think about that for a moment. And you're going to go and try to rely on a signal to make sure that your ticket comes up. I can't imagine the headache that is. I cannot even begin to fathom what a frustrating time that is every Friday that they have to go through, or every time they have a volleyball game. And somebody's going to say, well, all these schools have Wi-Fi. Not good. And now they don't want everybody on their Wi-Fi because they don't want to get hacked. It's just a snowball. It's a snowball. Derpy says, that sounds like them problem. It could be. We're in a generation that entirely doesn't care about, what am I missing here? There's like words missing. We're in generation entirely that doesn't care about the past or the old days. I care about it. I'm grateful. You know, and I'm sorry if somebody feels like that. And Derpy, I hope you don't feel like that. But if you do, I'm sorry that you feel that way. But If it wasn't for that older generation, if it wasn't for that generation that came before us and before them and before them, sorry, pal, we're not sitting here today talking about the freedoms that we have, talking about the great, the best way I can put it, the best way I can explain this particular situation, right, that you just explained, is that when Dan Yeagley was addressing the South Range Raiders after they won the state championship and giving out their rings, he said, this ring doesn't just represent you. It represents the 50-some years that came before you. It's for them. It represents this team, and it represents the teams that come after you. That's where we're at. That's where we are, I should say. I'm sorry, English teachers out there. That's where we are. Is that I get getting caught up into what you're doing, but you have to have that same reverence for what came before you and what's going to come after you and setting the bar and setting the standard. The problem is we have so far, especially in the last, I don't want to say 2 decades, we get so caught up in our own BS. Not even thinking about tomorrow. Definitely not thinking about yesterday, but so worried about what's happening today that we can't see past it. And this is a problem. This has become a true problem, and it's on display. It's on full display here. And we're going to get into that in the next segment when we talk about coaches and parents and the line that's there and stepping over that line and understanding the line and things of that nature. Because, listen, this has become an absolute problem. An absolute problem. And it's not just at high school. It's not just at college. It's not just in Little League. It's every single level. And we got to have a chat about it. And we will. And we're going to do it right after this. After a word from our great sponsors, our friends at let's go with Toyota Warren. Shockingly, they sponsor the show. Back after this.
We believe expectations are made to be exceeded. At the new Toyota of Warren, it's about more than just getting a great deal. It's about service you can count on and a friendship you can trust. Year after year, we've done what we do best. We've gone the extra mile so you could too. Because we know it's just not about buying a new car. It's the start of a new adventure. Toyota of Warren, driven by you.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Hi, I want to tell you about my Trish Yearwood home collection available at Sheely's Furniture. With 2 locations serving Ohio and Pennsylvania, Sheely's is one of the country's top sellers of my home collection. And the best part? At Sheely's, you never have to wait for a sale. They offer everyday low pricing as well as a price match guarantee, so you can shop the Trish Yearwood home collection with confidence. Come see my collection with something to offer for every room in your home and get it all with free local delivery, only at Sheely's Furniture.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ysn Power Hour, brought to you by our friends over at Toyota of Warren. DJ Yoakley with you here live in studio in East Palestine. Let's get to some of the. Let's wrap that last segment up if we can. Okay, here we go. Ty quoting, "This note is legal tender for all debts. Public and private means nothing, I guess." Perfectly said, my friend. Stamp it. Sam says, "I think every school should have to accept both. As a person who never carries cash, I believe hard currency will be a thing of the past soon." Listen, I don't usually carry, for all of the people that want to like beat me up and take my money and take my wallet. Usually there's about $13 and in my cards. But the reality of it is, like, I don't think cash is going anywhere anytime soon. I think they're going to try, and I think, without getting political, I think they've tried before. But I don't think cash is ever going to go anywhere, and I think we need to accept that fact. I think instead of terms of storing away cash under our mattresses and things of that nature, like people used to do and tend to do whenever they get scared, it's a source of payment. You know what I mean? Just like everything else. Like, I always think it's hilarious that the people that throw away pennies, right, just toss them away. And I'm not talking about the give a penny, take a penny. Like, I'm not a cheap bastard by any means, but it's one of those things, like, as far as I know, the pennies still spend, so 100 of them make $1, and it's the same as 4 quarters, and it's the same as, 20 nickels and all that stuff. So like, why are we not taking it? It still cashes. It still goes into the bank account. It still, spends the same as everything else. And I just don't, call me crazy, but why wouldn't you want as much money as you humanly can make from events like these? Because we know that schools are usually operating in the red. They always have their hand out because they need the money. They're not doing it because they like it. Who likes doing fundraisers? Not me. Hate it. Despise it. Schools don't like it anymore. But if Big Brother's making you, and they're saying, well, but again, something's not adding up, because the OHSA had so many people turn them down from being sites the last 3 years, because nobody wants that amount of stress with that amount of money, that little amount of money. They don't want that huge amount of stress that it deals. Again, it's just a bad situation. It's a bad situation. At the end of the day, it's the high school sports, and it's about the kids. Yes, it is more than everybody else, and we have to adjust for them. Everything we do for them, no matter what, it's for them. Yep. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. High school sports is about the kids. It's about the young student athlete, which segues perfectly into our next conversation. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last, I don't know, 2 decades, 3 decades, forever. Maybe not forever, because, and I'm not even going to say my generation, but like, I feel like my parents' generation, they didn't take the crap that this generation has to put up with. They just said, no, it's not going to happen here. I'm talking about and I don't even know how to encapsulate this, the frustrations, because right now it is two sides. There is a fence right dead center down the middle. And on one side, in the blue corner, you have the coach, the guy that is underpaid, undervalued, and underrespected. And in the other corner, the red corner, you've got the parent who doesn't have enough time, doesn't have enough patience, and doesn't have enough money to put up with the crap that the other side is throwing them. I've been on both sides now. I've been on both sides of this equation. And what I'm going to tell you is we're going to sort this out a little bit. And I want to hear it from you because it's okay to be on both sides of this. And a lot of times you are on both sides of this. A lot of times, especially nowadays, you don't have the younger generation of coaches that are able to operate in that budget because everything costs more. And believe it or not, parents, coaches don't get paid millions of dollars to coach your maybe going to go to college, sometimes goes to college and plays son or daughter. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that from the perspective that your son or daughter is not going to go to college and play sports. But let's not act like these are professional coaches coaching professional athletes, okay? We're going to start with the coaches. We're going to start on the side of the coaches, and we're going to go to the parents' side as well, okay? Bugaboo number one for most coaches is know your lane and stay in it, okay? Coaches understand generally, and all of this is in generalization, okay? And if you feel bad about this, it's not on me. Look in the mirror, okay? Stop analyzing everything a coach does and making it personal. If a coach makes the team run laps, and the first thought in your mind is, my kid didn't do it, why does he have to run laps? You're the problem. You're where it starts. Because believe it or not, your kid hears a lot of what you say. And even though they might not vocalize it, they internalize it. And they either talk to their friends about it, or maybe it slips out to the coach. And then they're the reason that the team's running laps. In most sports, they're team sports. Outside of even golf now is a team sport, right? Track is an individual sport technically, but it's a team sport. I mean, there's not many individual sports nowadays. Everything is team oriented for good reason. Sports is a team thing. But if you're mad because your kid gets penalized and has to do the same work as somebody else, but they didn't do it, that's part of the problem. Listen, there's a lot of holding calls that I was on the front line. There was a lot of pass interference calls that I was on defense. There's a lot of, bad calls that happened on the field. There was a lot of dumb stuff that happened that I didn't do. And there was stuff that I did. The stuff that I didn't do, I was still penalized for because that's my teammate. He wore the same color jersey that I did. In the same way, whenever I messed up, they were penalized. You make each other better. That's the idea behind sports. That's the idea behind being part of a team, is that you want to make each other better. 5 fingers make a fist. It's hard. As Coach Krzyzewski always said, hey, go punch somebody like this and see how it goes. Go punch somebody with an open hand and see how it goes. You're going to break your hand. But if you punch somebody with a fist, if everybody's on the same page, everybody's moving forward, lights out. It's hard to stop. But we live in such a day and age that my kid's better than yours. My kid shouldn't have to deal with the crap that your kid does. And we don't go to the other parent. We go to the coach. And you tell the coach what they are and what they're not going to do. And while a lot of young coaches put up with that because they have to, they're in the process, they're going through it, they don't want to ruffle too many feathers. Every coach gets to a point where you just go, not anymore. Not anymore. You're not just going to show up on a whim and tell me how to run my team. And again, this is not just high school. This is not just middle school. This is not just Little League. This is not just, this is all across the board. It's become a real problem. Friends, we're seeing this in college. I recently heard a story. This is true story. True story. A mother went to a college practice, waited till after the practice was over, confronted a coach, and told her son they were transferring after the coach basically laughed in her face. Folks, this is a grown man. This is a grown man. And I know moms out there. I know dads out there. It's always going to be your baby. I get it. I understand it. Trust me, I do. Cut the umbilical cord. Cut the umbilical cord. Like, you've got to, at some point, you cannot walk into a college or university and tell a coach off because your freshman or sophomore son, who is 18 or 19, is not playing over a potential 23, 24-year-old man. I don't care how much he was recruited. I don't care how much. Folks, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like, I thought that's why a lot of parents cried at senior graduation in high school, is because they lost the right to baby their kid. Now you're out in the real world. So you want to know what happened? That kid got called into the coach's office right after that and said, "So, son, you're no longer on the team." The kid didn't even know what happened. He had no idea what happened. Didn't even know his mom was on campus. Folks, this is what I'm talking about. At some point, you're either going to make yourself look foolish, your son or daughter look foolish, a combination of the two, but you're probably never going to make that coach look foolish. Because anybody who understands how that coach is taking care of their job, they're doing their job, probably knows to stay out of their way. It's an incredible thing. And you hear it, stories pop up. I heard a story, and I don't know about this story, but I heard that a couple coaches got into a fight in a dugout at a lower level. What are we doing? The cops were called. What are we doing here? What are we doing, guys? What are we doing, girls? This is crazy talk. If you would step back, listen, I understand it, that the hours, the weeks, the years of money that you invest in your son or your daughter and their advancement in playing a sport, the private lessons, all of that stuff. But listen, they do it all the time in band, with instruments. And just because somebody isn't Louis Armstrong, you don't beat up the instructor. Right? That's not how it goes. Sometimes the onus falls on you. Sometimes the onus falls on your son or daughter. That's how it is. If it were easy to be a professional athlete, then there wouldn't be just 2,000 of them out there. If it were easy to go to college and play sports, it wouldn't be just 7% of student athletes doing it. It'd be 93% of student athletes doing it. If it were easy to be a D1 student athlete, it wouldn't be 2% of that 7% doing it. Everybody would do it. But yet, just because a coach doesn't go and lead the way and get the University of Notre Dame and Ohio State and Michigan and all these other schools to follow your baby boy or your baby gal, it's the coach's fault. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not their job to get your son or daughter recruited. It's their job to make sure the members of that team grow up to be better men and women and to learn the sport a little bit better. But I would prefer much rather that they help us as parents make our sons and daughters better men and women and make a positive role model in their life. Because as you know, they don't always listen to the parent. We need another voice of reason in their life. So let's flip over to the other side, right? Because it's not always the parent's fault either. Because sometimes you do have coaches that are way too overbearing. They expect way too much. And listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. I don't care if you have 50 hours a week invested in your son or daughter. If they don't perform on the field at a certain level, they shouldn't be playing. And I'm not saying playing. I'm not saying suiting up. I'm saying they shouldn't be given the opportunities that people that are performing play. Because there are freak athletes that go out there and they don't have to put in that necessarily the extra time, the extra time, so to speak, that everybody else does. There's some people that are just naturally talented that they can just show up and play. Those are the gifts. We're all given gifts. That's their gift. I was not one of them. I was one that had to work my tail off to get to that. And I can only speak from that experience. But there were others. I don't know what they did the night before. They'd be groggy all day. They'd show up and they'd still outplay me. And I would just be so angry and upset, could not believe it. Such is life. Such is life. Not every single DUI is charted. Not every single person that commits a crime is arrested. Such is life. But there's coaches out there that get their favorites, right? No matter the ethnicity, the culture, the color, the religion, no matter what it is, they get their favorites and they're not giving it up. And I hear it all the time from parents. And at first it bothered me immensely. First it bothered me. I couldn't take it. I was like, you know what? These parents are just full of it. They're full of themselves. And then you see it. And then you see it. You see the coach picking kids over other kids, whether they're friends with their kids, whether they're not, whether they want them to be friends with their kids, whether they want their kids to be popular in school, whether they want just whatever. Sometimes coaches are bad coaches. Sometimes coaches want something other than the best for your kid. They want the best for somebody else's kid or the best for their kid or the best for themselves. And this is something I've always talked to young student athletes that want to get into coaching. And I tell them the first rule of coaching is you can't be their friend. You can't be their buddy. You can't go in there looking to be their best friend because there's a difference. Just in every single manager that I've ever met, the best managers didn't want to be my friend. They wanted to be my manager. They wanted to be someone that led. They wanted to be someone that mentored, but they didn't want to go out and have a weekend with me out on the lake. They want to get the most out of me so they can be the best that they can be and the best that I could be. Too many coaches nowadays get into it to be buddies with who they're coaching. And that's not the right way to do it. And sometimes you can build a relationship. I don't want to say that you can't have a relationship, but there's a difference between having a relationship with a student athlete as a coach and being their buddy. That's two different scenarios. And too often, coaches have to bend down because, let's face it, open enrollment has become a problem. Not the reason that it was intended. We've also had problems with, if I don't get my way, I'm going to go here. And I don't know how, because I could never do it, but they could just move. They just pick up and go. It's incredible to me. Like, it's like Monopoly money. We're just taught. Good for you if you got that, I guess. But the reality is, sometimes these coaches overstep their bounds. You're not going to tell my son or daughter what they have to do. They're yours for that, 3 hours, right? Then they come home, they might have to do chores. They might have to step up and be part of the family, have their hand in the pile, so to speak, of the real team that they're on. I don't have a problem with them being part of your team, but you're not going to suffocate their time. That's still my kid. Some coaches think that during that season, it's all about them. Bad news. They wear your jersey on a Friday night, but they're mine every other night of the week and twice on Sunday. There's an imbalance here. And you know who's hurt? You know who it affects the most? Is the student athlete. The young man or woman who is trying to split their time, divide their relationships, right? Because one's telling them to do one thing, one's telling them to do the other. And guess what? I don't care who you are. 9 times out of 10, the parent's always going to win, because that's where the bread is buttered. It's just life. But the problem is, the parent may always win, but the parent's not always right. There's one thing that we lack nowadays in sports, and it's communication. And it's the first thing that we're taught in sports. It's the first thing that I was taught in baseball. Pop up on the infield. What do you say? I got it. Nobody communicates anymore. We communicate through the child. And let's think about that for a minute. We have 2 grown people, grown adults, that are communicating through a child. There's group chats with coaches and kids and parents and kids. But coaches to parents, I guess after T-ball, it dissolves. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to that conversation, that communication that we had. Because if we're on the same page there, if coaches and parents are on the same page, and expectations and disappointments are all being discussed, then it paves a way better spot for that student athlete. And I think we can get more out of them. And I think they can get more out of themselves. Let's get to oh boy. G chiming in, saying you got that right. Scott Resitar also, absolutely. It's on the parents and students to sell and recruit themselves, absolutely. Anthony chiming in. Thanks, Ant. Good to see you popping in here. Coaches, you don't have to wait first. Anthony busting his tail all summer. We're sitting here trying to ramp up for the season. Anthony's doing that and still putting on running point. Kudos to my good friend, Mr. Anthony Hartwig. I will be joining you. I'm back in the ranks, Ant, so calm yourself. Anthony says, coaches recruit families, not just you. Not enough people understand that. He's talking about the college. The colleges do that, not high schools. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And then Derpy says, I've heard it all now. Yeah, you sure have, man. I couldn't believe it myself until I checked into it, and it was legit. Radar's here, and Radar says, Omaha, Radar's Monday Spark. I can't wait till the 2023 high school football preview of both East Palestine and LeBray. Both schools are coming off 1-win seasons in 2022. Those previews can be seen tonight on 21 WFMJ, our proud partner over at Channel 21. Thank you, as always, to my good friend Jack Gerdick and the entire team over there at 21. And by the way, Andrew DePaulo, congratulations to you and Amanda on the birth of your upcoming birth of your child. We're all excited for you. and looking forward to that. So there you go. It all goes back to how you were raised. You are not lying, my friend. You are not lying. I've seen way too much of recruiting in my years. It's way out of control. And I don't know if you're, Timmy, I don't know if you're talking about high school or college, but I think you're right in both scenarios. So I'm not going to argue that one iota. We're going to get to the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark? Presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Anything commercial, residential, industrial, anything electrical. Make sure you're heading over to DickeyElectric.com. So my spark is a positive one, right? There's been enough negative on this show today. My positive spark is going to be a quick little story. 2015, I was ordained, not by accident. We did it on purpose, but I didn't exactly do it sober. But moral of the story was it went well. I did a wedding in 2016 with a couple of my good friends. And then last weekend, I was privileged enough to do another wedding. And this was a wedding of very close friends that are like very close family to us. And I was very excited. But I will tell you this, and I told them the same thing. I was more nervous performing this wedding than I was at my own wedding. And it's funny, and I don't know if anybody else is like this out there, but like when you're out and you're doing something for somebody else, there's way more feeling to it, right? You put more pressure on yourself because it means so much to you to do well by them. And everything went 100% off. The wedding was great, but it was more about the two involved, obviously, and Lou and Lexi. And it was a great time had by many, all, if I do say so myself. And, it's one of those things. When I did it in 2015, when I got ordained, it was just a check the box moment. But I can't tell you how cool it is to do that. And I wish everybody could do it once in their lifetime. Like, I've been the best man at a wedding. I've done the whole gamut, but man, being able to show people how much two people are in love and have them confess it and be a part of their big day. I couldn't be more grateful. So, if you ever have the chance to get ordained or be a part in any of that, do it. Just go. I mean, I know it's uncomfortable, but most things that you do in life that are worth doing usually are. So, so there's my spark. There's your Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark? Presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Visit them today at DickeyElectric.com. Ladies and gents, the show tomorrow, going to be a good one. We'll have, I know we have a guest that's going to be a surprise guest. We'll let you know about 2:00 tomorrow on our social media channels. But until then, my name's DJ. That's going to do it for this show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at 3:00 tomorrow, sharp, right here on your sports network. God bless you. YSN thanks you for watching this presentation